Sanbonani, good morning. My name is Sineku Kutuma. I'm the Dean of Teaching and Learning for the College of Health Sciences at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I would like to welcome everyone here today. The 9th Annual Academic Monitoring and Support, which is AMS Colloquium, marks the beginning of the third cycle of such colloquia in the history of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. The UKZN AMS Colloquium has evolved and acquired the life of its own. And we're excited that through its evolution, in 2022, we are seeing a marked interest from the main customers and beneficiaries of the AMS policy of the university. That is, the students and the student leadership. We are looking forward to their full engagement and input towards shaping the future of student academic development at UKZN and perhaps throughout the country. I'm sure that by the end of the colloquium, you will agree that this annual AMS Colloquium is one unifying event where all of us as the University of KwaZulu-Natal community, representing all colleges, are able to work together towards the achievement of one goal, which is holistic student wellness and student development and success. I'm really proud to say that the unity that we shall see in the presentations and engagements throughout the day is a reflection of the work behind the scenes, where even the steering committee members and related task team members are people who are coming from all university sectors. That is UTLO, QPA, 4 colleges, UTEL, and even ICS. We are all excited that our colloquium over the years have spread towards other sister universities and even research organizations, as you would see in the program. We welcome all delegates and presenters from these organizations. Your presence here is a true testimony of how much UKZN AMS Colloquium is inclusive. As one of the few contact events that are hosted by the Office of the Teaching and Learning in the College of Health Sciences over the last 2 years, there can be no better place to celebrate this than this beautiful place that is Inkosi Albert Luthuli International Convention Center, fondly known as the Durban ICC. I hope that having this colloquium on this beautiful day, in this beautiful venue, will give us time to reflect on the lessons we learned from the remote student development and support approaches that we used over the last 2 years. We will learn from the best practices of the last 2 years and the lived experiences of the students as the beneficiaries of such practices. This AMS Colloquium focuses on innovative approaches to student development and support in higher education as the main theme. In the wake of all the extraordinary pandemic-related strategies that were adopted in student development and support over the last 2 years, it is now time for us to take stock, to check where exactly we are and where we want to take MS for future of this university. Normally, we hardly take time to critically examine and interrogate the innovative approaches that we adopt and that are experienced by students. We never really get that time to sit down and look critically at what we are doing and how it is achieving the goal. I hope that today we are in a safe space where we are going to be able to envision the future of student development and support at UKZN and beyond. I'm honored to have Prof. Janine Lewis, who is our Tau Fellow, who is going to talk to us, because we really need to hear from people who are engaged in these things. Not only read about them, but hear them talking to us about what it is to be supporting a student and how it is to really make scholarship out of such things. We are having a number of presenters, but more than just the presenters that are here, I want to welcome all the delegates, and I want to urge each and every one of us to really engage with the presentations. There are going to be Q&A sessions where we're going to be asking for clarity and hearing more and more of what the benefits are really for people who engage in student support services. And as a result, we are going to be having something slightly different this time. As you see these nice couches, we're going to have a chat with people who drive this process, with people who drive the implementation of the AMS policy at UKZN. I can stand here and talk for the rest of the day, but my task really is to say welcome to everybody who is here. However, before I do that formally, I just want to give my personal, deep-seated, heartily appreciation to the team that has pulled this through. Without the team, they know that the last 2 weeks, including up to this morning, I am away, I'm attending a program, but they have done everything that we see here. On top of that, I also want to thank the UCDP, as well as Professor Dunpath, that is the UTLO, director of the UTLO, which is our office that supports this work. And having done that, in the not so short note, I really want to say you are all welcome, and let us enjoy the rest of the day and participate as fully as we can. Thank you. That's what happens. That's what happens when you are too excited. You even forget the main things. The main thing that I should be doing, having welcomed everybody, is to then ask the DVC of the College of Health Sciences, Professor Busincama, to formally open. You know, when you started by talking, you even forget that there are formalities that has to be followed. Professor Ncama, please come on board.
Thank you so much, Prof. Duma, and really thanks, colleagues Sanbonani, executive members of the executive management, members of the Student Representative Council, academics and students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Sanibonani nonke, igama lami nguBusincama njengoba sedzwile, DVC and Head of College of Health Sciences. It really is my pleasure to welcome all of you today to this year's 9th UKZN AMS Colloquium, which is hosted by our Dean of Teaching and Learning, Professor Snegugu Duma. As a college, we are hosting for the second time since I've been here in this position. And it's exciting to see how this AMS Colloquium has evolved. This AMS Colloquium will focus on key learnings that occurred during the pandemic to ensure student success under the themes of the adoption of innovative tools and strategies, new approaches, and identifying and supporting students at risk, data-informed interventions in academic development, as well as peer-led strategies and the lived experiences of our students. The global pandemic forced us to rethink the teaching strategies and implement new approaches to assist our students. We relied on the power of technology and big data to shape and define our approaches. Shifting to remote learning and online classrooms uncovered many challenges for both our students and for us as teachers. The biggest challenge for our students was poor connectivity, and in some places, no connectivity at all. This then led us to talk about leaving no one behind, especially because most of our students came from deep rural areas. The main concern for teachers was around the disengagement of students and difficulty in interaction and communication during lessons. Teaching materials had to be adapted overnight to ensure that it's engaging, accessible, and is understood. We also needed to rapidly redesign exams and other forms of summative and formative assessments to suit the new teaching format. Amidst all this anxiety and uncertainty, higher education institutions globally adapted and have since become hubs for innovation in the teaching, learning, and student support space. Our goal has always been to ensure student success by providing the best support. It would be remiss of me if I didn't take this opportunity to thank our staff who had to invest significant time and effort into ensuring a successful transition. UKZN's transition to blended learning and teaching, which began before the pandemic, also provided opportunities for creative ways of engaging students. And I look forward to hearing about this as we meander through our day's programs. Having seen the opportunities that blended learning and teaching offered, it's important that we think very hard about adopting a hybrid approach to ensure student access. Student counseling and academic support approaches also had to move to online space, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the lived experiences of our students and their student counselors and peer wellness mentors about how they traversed that period. The aftermath of the pandemic is still with us, and we are going to experience it for quite a while. As we continue to adapt and constantly shape the manner in which education is delivered and how students are supported, let us always ensure that student success remain a priority. I think this is important because if we reflect upon the DHET statistics on post-school education and training in South Africa, which were first published in 2012 and then 2014, it showed us that only about 15 to 20% of students were completing on time. And that really is a big loss if you look at the amount of money invested and everything else that is offered in higher education. In 2001, the DHET set a national plan of 25% for graduation rates. But as we are, I am not sure whether we've gone beyond that 25%. 25% really is a quarter of students that come through our doors who finish on time. Really, it means that we have not achieved much. So we still have a lot of work to do, and I hope this colloquium on academic monitoring and support will provide some solutions towards this problem. Although improvements have started showing, but they are very small, and it's something really that we need to engage with as we talk about, as we discuss today's program. I want to wish you all a successful colloquium. Let us embrace this opportunity to learn from each other and ensure that we provide the best teaching and learning experiences for our students, bearing in mind that many of our students, especially from UKZN, they come from poor rural communities in South Africa. The gross inequalities in educational outcomes for learners from different socio-economic backgrounds must always be taken into consideration, as it presents many challenges in us adopting hybrid approaches. Finally, I really want to thank the students and the student leadership. For the first time, we were oversubscribed and many were still coming from students. And it's beginning to tell us that students are beginning to realize the value of engaging with the granular issues of the curriculum, something that we had not seen before. So for me, this is really a turning point in the history of the college. We recently hosted a very successful MBCHB program evaluation where we sit with students and the staff and everybody and we look at the program. And I wish that this also cascades to all programs in the college. And I'm really happy that students are beginning to engage with the granular issues of the curriculum. And this is what will change the course of history. Not always going out striking, protesting, but engaging with the contents of the curriculum and beginning to interrogate and see whether it serves the needs of the country, it serves you personally, and it allows you to be able to enter the job market being confident. So I'm really very grateful that students have taken this upon them and they are really engaging. With these few words, let me welcome you once again and wish you a successful colloquium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the beautiful welcome. I am sure we all now feel really welcome. We feel like we can now start with the colloquium. Mine was to open, but the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the college has actually formally opened this. Colleagues, friends, students, everyone, there's a slight change in the program. Professor Songa is in Johannesburg and his flight was slightly delayed for this morning, so we won't be getting his message of welcome, at least for now, but when he comes, he will address us at whatever time. It should be around 11. We will make sure that that happens. So without further ado, I will just go to the next point on the agenda and welcome our keynote speaker who is going to speak to us on navigating the learning landscape, humanity, expectations, access, and transformation, that is HIT, as applied to student support. Our keynote speaker is Professor Janine Lewis, who is my personal TAU advisor. She's also a TAU fellow, has graduated through the HERSA graduate for women, and also got a Women Researcher of the Year in 2017 in TUT, and has received twice the Teaching Excellence Award at TUT. She has experience in curricular transformation and program design and interdisciplinary learning centered teaching. She serves there as an associate professor in the Department of Performing Arts at TUT. Her direct fields of specialization include theater for empowerment, physical theater, acting, and directing or devising public performances. Professor Lewis also has qualifications in the PG DIP, Higher Education Pedagogy, and the MBA, Higher Education Management from University of Hagaheila, that's in Finland. This has facilitated the publications and research in the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning as a multidisciplinary agenda. Professor Lewis has taught internationally at Ohio State University, USA in 2007, the Hunter Gates Physical Theatre Academy in Edmonton, Canada in 2007, and the 6th Annual International Festival and Making Theatre in Athens, Greece in 2010. She has presented papers at various conferences in countries across the world and within South Africa, and has published widely in the fields of theatre, performance, and higher education. But more importantly, as I indicated earlier, she is, or was, or remains my Tau advisor and a friend. Janine, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. This is an exciting time. It's an exciting time post-COVID to be talking about student support, to be talking about curricula, to be talking about how we can go ahead within the higher education field. I am here today not within my capacity of performance. I'm here as an academic, as a fellow university scholar, as you all are with me today. So today, thank you. I can move over. Right. So today I want to have a presentation and an offering to you that talks about perhaps student support in slightly different ways, or ways that perhaps you do know, and it's nice to have a reminder of it. But to start, I'd like to make sure that this is a bit of a dialogue. I want your responses, please. So I want to know, how many in the room are involved in student support directly? Right. And how many in the room are involved as an academic? And how many then are involved as management? Right. 3 hands. Some of us put up 3 hands. Right. Please note the hierarchy that I used, with all due respect, yeah, that I put the student support first at the top, yeah, and then academia, and then the management of this process. So that's the feeling of where we're going and how we're going to talk about this topic today. So to frame the discussion in academia, the talk from ESAC, the article published from ESAC, and is part of the copyright of the Council for the Department of Social Sciences Research in Africa, is the equitable access and retention and success, where the claim is that we've got to have innovative strategies in pre- and post-student admission. So not only do we have to look at how we admit them, but how are we supporting them to succeed thereafter? And most specifically, to lift out the comprehensive and holistic student support for today. I'm going to frame it in the acronym HEAT. Now, HEAT is an acronym that we created, and we published an article from colleagues of mine from Tau that, now. Are you coming this way? Sorry, guys. There we go.
I'll leave it close and start again.
There we go. Thank you, gentlemen. It's lovely to be in a bit of distress and two gentlemen rush up and support you. Thank you. So HEAT, we use the acronym for Humanity, Expectations, Access and Transformation. In an article that we published, looking at the admission processes for universities, where humanity refers to ways of being, belonging, believing, partaking, striving, and surviving within the global context. Expectations refer to belief, trust, promise, hope, and desire within the context of individual life chances. Access refers to claim, permit, consent, participate, and accept in the context of academic environment. Transformation refers to disrupting, transference, truth, authenticity, and respect in the context of human relationships. Now, I want to bring that acronym and shift the focus now to the post-acceptance phase. So looking at humanity through the student support towards lifelong learning. There's a growing concern to the extent which universities produce people who are work ready with the necessary life skills or world fit for work. De la Harpe and friends claim that higher education institutions do not produce graduates equipped with the necessary lifelong learning skills and professional skills to enable them to find employment and to progress in their careers. Expectations. Staff and students believe that tertiary education will provide a desirable future. These perspectives offer the impression that without a degree, one will be able to raise one's status, both economically and socially. But revelation by the candidates as well as their family that they are, as potential students, that you might not be as prepared for university as what you think, or having a lack before you even get here, a deficit. It leaves them disillusioned, frustrated, and angry with the system. The tools of critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical discourse are not factored in by the student, family, or society. This could be helped with the development of metacognition, which is the awareness and understanding of one's own thought processes, which then developed may lead to higher cognitive skills and lifelong reflexive learning. More on that later. Access to success with supports. The roads must fall and frees must fall, expose the need for universities to transform curricula. The student population in South African universities provides for research into factors that hinder success rate, particularly among first-year students. Such research may include the economic impact on the quality of teaching, motivation, performance, and engagement, and students' ability to acquire higher functioning cognitive skills such as problem solving and critical thinking, according to Hornsby. And finally, transformation. Building employability into the curriculum. Then came the implementation of HEQSF, the project which took us a long time to get here and now is being evaluated in some places, which is based on curriculum reform. Curricular reform in South Africa employs the National Qualifications Framework across the areas of education and training, academic and everyday knowledge, disciplines and subjects. In this way, it aims to contribute towards the overall personal development of every student, as well as the social economic development of society at large. Programs should be designed to enhance graduate employability by incorporating graduate attributes such as intellectual skills, personal attributes, communication, and organizational skills. As I said, none of this is new knowledge. This is just framing it within the academia that we know. So we keep talking about all of these skills and these acquisition of extra skills and soft skills, if you'd like. And one way of doing it is definitely through the metacognition towards self-actualization and lifelong learning. Where metacognitive knowledge, according to Flavel, includes person knowledge or understanding one's own capabilities, task knowledge, which relies on how difficult the individual perceives the task to be, as well as their self-confidence, and conditional knowledge or one's ability to use strategies to learn information. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. We know this, yeah? These processes are applicable to both pedagogical and andragogical applications, where research revealed that for a student to be successful, they displayed personal initiative and self-regulatory control regarding their sources of motivation, choice of learning methods, form of behavioral performance, and use of social and physical environmental resources. The ownership is with them. So metacognition in student support. Students can be described as self-regulated to the degree that they are metacognitively, motivationally, and behaviorally active participants in their own learning. So therefore, this drive towards self-actualization by Maslow is enabled through a sense of the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and capabilities. I'd like to propose that a learning-centered environment links this metacognitive qualities, including self-reflection, self-efficacy, and resilience for both the lecturer and the student. Here's a combination of Kolb's cycle of experiential learning and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just as a friendly reminder. But now to get to the fun part of my discussion. TAO, the TAO Fellowship. At the TAO Fellowship, what we did and I want to present to you today comes from that environment. TAO is the teaching advancement at universities. And the themes that are covered in the TAO is teaching engagement and responsiveness through social justice, the scholarship of teaching and learning, SOTL, and becoming a change agent. The people you see here are the cohort 3 of the TAO program. In the TAO program, they get all the participants get put into groups, and each of the groups is multidisciplinary, but they work towards a theme, and their theme is derived from the topic that they choose for their project. And the group project objectives have twofold. It's an individual project linked to your university, and a group digital artifact. And it's the artifact from my group that I want to share with you today. So just to show you, this is the group 2 from cohort 3. Yeah, including your beautiful dean. And we created individual projects under the theme of student support. At no time, please do not think that I am a supervisor or the all-knowing. I am merely an advisor, a sounding board. And it's fantastic to have Robbie in the room with us today because he was my advisor in TAO 1. So the system rolls on and we support one another still. These were the topics from our group. You will have noticed that each of the individuals comes from different universities, so different environments, same pond, higher education learning in South Africa. Each of the projects looked at it from a different perspective, student support from a different perspective. Some looked at it from the actual perspective of how do we assess the student before they even get there. Some looked at it post. Some looked at it at a postgraduate level. But all of them were formulated and looked at it from a SOTL perspective, Scholarship of Teaching and Learning. Then comes the group project that we had to do. So all of these individuals, we had to sit together and create a digital artifact. Because this Tau 3 happened to be in 2020 and 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. So we changed our artifact from a traditional poster to becoming a digital artifact. And we sat together and we said, where are the linkages? Where are the meeting points? And we came up with these two. The links in all those 6 projects were in the humanistic learning theory, which again, I'm sure you're all very aware of. Okay? It emphasizes the freedom and autonomy of students. And it acknowledges that the student is an adult with prior learning. Then we put it in the educational theory of caring. Care theory focused primarily on the value of relationships. Now, care and caring with regards to the educational practice. So I want to zoom in on the theory of caring in education. Central elements in care education include listening, dialogue, critical thinking, reflective response, and making thoughtful connections amongst the disciplines and to life itself. Isn't that reminiscent of what I talked about earlier, where we discussed the aspects that function and how we are looking at a lens of higher education? Care theory has been identified as a pathway to potentially improve student outcomes across the grades. I'm just trying to find my mouse. Where there have been a couple of theorists that talk about to frame care theory, one of which is Noddings, that argues that the most important thing is to connect the moral worlds of school and public life. And then there's Mayers, who writes specifically from a higher education perspective. There are concerns raised about the care language, specifically the use of the word empathy or sympathy. Empathy is a relatively new word dating from the late 19th century, referring to the intellectual understanding of the feelings in others or in works of art. It rose in the connection with aesthetics, not moral theory. Whereas a sympathetic response feels with the person, identifies with the person. So the use of the development in part is a reaction to some concern that sympathy, the use of empathy, came about because there's some concern that sympathy might be too soft, perhaps too feminine. Where caring and moral social development all activates the aspects of modeling, dialogue, practice, and confirmation. Modeling, as in the role model, in dialogue, both parties speak and both parties listen. Dialogue within a caring relation is marked by attention to other. The purpose of such dialogue is usually to identify needs, to learn what the cared for is going through, or what the carer is aiming for, and then to work cooperatively on meeting the needs. So through sympathy, you can get to an understanding of and provide empathy. Practice, usually couched in empathy and sympathy teaching modes. One must learn, consciously or unconsciously, what it means to be cared for before one can learn to care for others. And confirmation points a person towards a better self, and it is in itself a beautiful moral act, acknowledging the good reason behind the actions taken. So the inclusion of moral development in the classroom happens in a multiple ways, outside of the traditional convention or explicit demonstration of care. How do we demonstrate it within higher education? And I think this list is very familiar. Listening to students, showing empathy, supporting students. That's what it looks like. But how do we do that? Walker and Gleaves actually did research and published from New Zealand, from the universities in New Zealand, where they looked at how do we do this in higher education? Where they discovered that there's a scarce research in 2015 into caring teachers in higher education and what that might mean. They came up with, and I know this is a busy slide, they came up with a relationship at the center, compelled to care, caring as resistance, and caring as less than. Let's unpack these. It's a fantastic article to read, and I'll share the slides because there's a hyperlink in there for you to find it quickly, is a relationship at the center. And many of the participants participated and were very honest and glib in the way they answered. A relationship at the center showed the most explicit attention to the relational matters and reflected critically on every nuance of their behavior, if it could feasibly affect their students. So it was the teacher, the lecturer, looking, the academic, the support service person, helping the student, and putting the relationship as primary focus first. The participants presented testimony that they were engaged in teaching a socio-cultural activity, and they put the emphasis on the teaching. I love the last sentence, though, in the cons. Seems a radical departure, a sort of creepy counseling type of teaching, which for many staff muddies the boundaries. Then there's compelled to care. A compulsion to care was a notable category for the participants in this research, but codes illustrated the complexity and frequent contradiction of the teacher's intentions and motivations. An imposter syndrome comes to light. Again, the last sentence in the cons. I feel confused over what I'm here to do, to give of myself, like, to serve or to be, and in being, to provoke. It's frightening and confusing. Caring as resistance. This category speaks to the disagreement that is found in the institutional-personal nexus. One group of codes concerning the institutional elements of this relationship dealt with the intrinsic complexity in the purpose of the 21st century university, encapsulated whether it was to have a moral purpose or to be an economically sustainable institution. You have to be strong, so strong. Caring as less than. Now this heading is a bit misleading. They mean that its caring is seen to be less than just the teaching or the academia or the knowledge acquisition that you're trying to put across. But equally, the teachers in this study perceived that caring was viewed as time-consuming and wasteful for a large group of students who had no particular academic difficulties, as if the majority of students would not benefit from the relational intensity. The last sentence of the cons, I'm not sure I'd like who I've become any longer. It's rather painful to think about it all. Now, in these pros and cons and these 4 categories, how many of you started to identify and say, that's familiar? That sounds very familiar to me. I feel that. And then the next one comes up and says, oh, yeah, no, but that's the one for me too. So today I want to leave you with a care package before I show you the artifact that we developed. The care package is, you cannot care about others if you don't care about yourself first. Having just come on the airplane, we know first put on your oxygen mask before helping others. The imposter syndrome, and it's a human aspect, doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. You are worthy. You are here. You've been here. You are still here. Yeah? You mean something just walking into the room. Change the dialogue. You are not doing it for them, the other, whoever that may be. You are doing it with them. Learning-centered as opposed to student-centered. If we change the focus to learning-centered, it includes us as the staff to say we're also vulnerable. We also need the support. And as much as student support is there and the students are requesting it, we need to support ourselves, and in such that students are supporting us in the process too. So that brings us to andragogy as opposed to pedagogy. The acknowledgement that the practice of teaching and learning within adult education. What does that mean? That the students are adults when they get here. The students come with prior knowledge. We forget that. They're human too. They come with a whole lot of knowledge. We are together in that space, learning together. The students should take ownership of their own learning with your support. So to tie a big knot, heat, caring as student, and I want to add, and staff support. Learning-centered. We are on this journey together. Moral revolution, dialogical. Not moral development, but a revolution. Own your expectations. Set your goals. Know your limitations. Seek support. Don't expect. Ask. Reach out your hand. We're in this together. Communicate with the student. Engage with the student through dialogue. Be honest with the student. Ownership of the part you play. You are not alone. Empathy and sympathy. Empowerment and moral self-reflection, self-efficacy, and resilience are the transformation we will see. So disruptive educational caring is what I wish for you today, and today for your colloquium, for you to engage and grapple with ideas that could be disruptive and thought process, and using the terms us, we, and our to be inclusive. And here comes the video that we came up with as part of our artifact, our digital artifact, as a proposition towards what we would like to see being used for student support.
The road to education. I took a short left into the road with a sign that read higher education. In ecstasy, I arrived at the citadel of learning. In euphoria, I gaped at the stretching edifices and banished Roman pillars. Two strangers approached me, student reps, their smiles awakening an air of allure. My journey had just begun. The excited frenzy reminded me of the impediments that lay waiting. I was ready to face them all because courage and resilience are my rhythm. Our variegated faces and backgrounds bind us as we flock towards our targets. The finale is here. We look back to find discovered experiences and interventions. Finally, we exit with triumph and melodies and the rainbow songs of Africa. Bravo to us! Bravo! This Teaching Advancement at University collaborative project was conceptualized by 7 academics from 6 South African universities. It is formulated as a multi-layer electronic artifact, which is based metaphorically on a student's journey through tertiary education. This artifact is a prototype of the author's envisaged conceptual design of an app that configures a blend of university service offerings to students in a preemptive curation that obviates students' barriers to academic success. The digital app project responds to the DHET expectation for higher education institutions to offer tailored service packages that cater to the varied needs of students, which draws on the lived experience and knowledge that the student brings with them. Every student has their own unique challenges or potholes that they encounter on their journey. The app considers if, where, and when support services are needed, so that students can tailor-make their own support service solutions package. Student support should not be a one-size-fits-all service for all students to undergo, nor should students have to feel as if they are alone on this journey. Instead, they should feel empowered to reach out to institutional support where necessary.
The South African universities shown below understand the principles of adult learning, where the students are acknowledged with entering the system with prior knowledge and experience, where students engage with the toolkit that enables them to access the student support system anytime, any place, and in response to their needs analysis to support their future growth and development. This holistic toolkit is a set of support services which prepare students for the learning environment and various work environments. The Holistic Student Support Toolkit serves the needs of each student to enhance their lifelong learning journey. Meet Positive and Forlon, who have just arrived at the university, carrying different packages. Forlon's bag is nearly empty. He has been using his life tools when dealing with insecurity, financial troubles, and health issues. And he knows about student wellness counseling services, but he doesn't realize that it is he who needs any of these tools to support his future. He believes that he will find his way and cope with things as he has always done. Positive packed his bag this morning with tools he figured he might need as he starts on his journey. Positive has experienced many setbacks in life. Essentially, he has brought with him an umbrella, which represents the characteristic of resilience.
The Student Support is introducing a new holistic student support toolkit. The Holistic Student Support Toolkit services could include
mental health, career advising, academic support, basic needs, tutoring, and student financial health.
A new holistic student support toolkit, which provides customized packages for students that guarantees their success in their lifelong learning journey. These customized packages are tailor-made to benefit all the students according to their unique needs.
Here is Hopeful and Smarty Pants. They are both utilizing the new holistic student support toolkit packages. Hopeful took a customized package that includes the following services: basic needs, mental health, career advising, and student financial health. However, Smarty Pants took a different customized package according to her needs, which includes basic needs, academic support, tutoring, and student financial help. They both managed to succeed. Help is everywhere. Pick up your devices and seek information. Reach out to any of the institutions shown below for more and current updates. Don't just learn, achieve your dreams.
In this proposed service support app, the student plays a central role in identifying and focusing on their needs. Each student is empowered to take ownership and craft their own solutions in whatever form required, to co-create their future by filling in their unique pothole with a durable mixture which fashions themselves uniquely in the world. This is in line with the pedagogy of empowerment, which subscribes to the educational theory and philosophy of care, which uses intervention methods to guide people towards achieving a sense of control over their own development and environment. The fact that the app will be techno-driven is a good fit for the youth of today, as they are growing up in a digital era with tech algorithms at their fingertips. This proposed app tool taps into student self-assessment and assists with preventative and support services based on individual needs. Everyone will be encouraged to see their improved futures through not just earning a qualification, but to ensure their dignity and personal growth and well-being is met and supported. Not only are universities modeling employable graduates, but are also ensuring that these alumni are molded to adapt to environmental stress that is based on conscious or unconscious choice, and that enhances control over their own journey through life. A challenge that these TAU fellows embrace.
So that is our toolkit that we conceptualized and we thought up and we put together. We would love to see it come to fruition, to actually be used in reality. The whole artifact we created was foregrounded by a poem that was also written by two of our colleagues in the group. And that brings me to the end of my discussion. Thank you, everybody.
Professor Lewis, thank you very much. The nostalgia as I was watching, the sweat and the tears, the time that was spent. But more than anything, thank you for an enlightening speech, helping us to apply the caring theory. Some of us only know it from our health side of things, but to actually apply it in the student support and in teaching and learning is nothing but excellence. Thank you so much. I'm sure you want to thank her again. Okay, thank you. I think we'll have to proceed. As we proceed, our program is taking us now to the couch. We're going to have a chat on the couch with college student support service managers, supporting students for success in a post-COVID era. I know that we're burning with questions that maybe we want to highlight with Prof. Lewis, but we are going to have a Q&A after the couch and after one more presentation. So we are going to be having the couch, as I've indicated, and the people that are I'm going to call up in no particular order are going to be Dr. Angela Stephens from Humanities. Is she here? I didn't see her earlier. please come up. Dr. Saloshni Pillay from the College of Health Sciences. Ms. Shelley Bensley from CAES. I hope she's also here. Yes. And Ms. Ishara Maharaj from CLMS. These are the people that I'm going to have a chat with. Please come. Don't be afraid. I think that's what happens when you're not part of developing a program. They make you to do everything. And they know that because you are away, you're not going to say no. I notice now that I'm also facilitating this session. So that's okay, I'll do that. I need to see you. We're going to have a very nice, relaxed chat where we're going to share our experiences on the services that we offer to our students during the pandemic, but also what we do every day. According to the National Plan for Higher Education, that is in 2001, the success of students and the consequent improvement in graduation rates can be directly linked to the efficient and effective provision of student support programs. With this broad understanding of the role of student support services in higher education, we're going to address this in a number of questions. And there's no particular order, really. You will take the question as and when, so I'll be guided by your smiling faces or your hands that will indicate that I want to take this one. Okay, so we already know the background. It's every day that we do. It's something that we do every day. I don't even see if they notice that slip in the tongue. Anyway, what are the major shifts in student support services that happened due to the COVID-19 pandemic, be it in your college or in your whole university? Stevens just looked that way, so we'll start with you, Maharaj. Oh, you have it? Oh, great. Yes, Ishara.
Thank you so much, Prof. And good morning to all of the attendees. Thank you for the opportunity to engage with student support this morning. It's really a fantastic opportunity to share our work. I think one of the most challenging changes was our transition from face-to-face provision of our support services to an online service provision. And that meant really orientating ourselves from staff and also to ensure that our students were able to access and utilize the service efficiently and proficiently. And we had to take into account the fact that our students, particularly those in the deep rural areas, had issues with connectivity, had issues with identifying spaces to connect with us. And this meant that we needed to be agile, we needed to be flexible, we needed to ensure that we were responding at the level that they were at. So remember that part of our services include individual counseling, so we had to ensure that we continued with this. We needed to look at the various online platforms So we looked at synchronous and asynchronous provisions, and we needed to ensure that our students were able to access these at the different levels. So we also recognized that our students were struggling with bread and butter issues, basic financial issues of being able to have data, sufficient data as well. So we also came up as colleagues with the idea of a toll-free number in order to provide our students, particularly those who were unable to afford data. There are also other transitions, particularly our career development office, where we had to then move to online service provision for both graduate recruitment and career development. And I think I'll give others an opportunity to...
Definitely. Thank you very much. Very enlightening, the agility, the flexibility. We all had to just rise to the occasion. Thank you. Do you want to add, Dr.
Yes.
Pillay?
So Ishara has spoken about within our space some of the significant shifts we've had to make. But I think for us as student support services, the primary shift we've had to make is the mindset change. What we've been familiar with for years and years in higher education, the method of offering our services, the way we're going to engage with our students, all of that had to change. So it's that kind of paradigm shift that was important. I recall when we were asked to go home and develop a business continuity plan. And you know, it's not too difficult to look at how we're going to continue services, but we now had to look at how would we continue services in a different way. And that for me was a significant change. But more importantly, we had to learn, think, and act on our feet, something that we do within our space in contact engagement. But here, having to do this, we had to do all of this whilst navigating uncharted territory. So I guess we all were a little bit in the dark and trying to move upstream at the same time teaching and learning for ourselves.
The mind shift was the main thing. Thank you.
I think if I can just come in and add to what my colleagues have said, and I must say I really appreciated the presentation before us, because it spoke to so many of the issues that we are dealing with, that we are also trying to work with at the moment. And I think across the colleges, across the institutions, what was really different about the COVID was that we all were the human factor here. That it was really about not just necessarily student support services as experts, but we ourselves were navigating the changes and trying to apply our minds. For us as well, what really stood out was from a mental health perspective, that issues that tend to already be around, so the anxiety, the grief, the trauma that is very much part of our lives, became exacerbated, but not just for our students, for us. So in terms of being able to not just transition, but manage that was quite a challenge as well. And I think it was for us in our college one of the most important changes that we had to navigate as well.
So like Professor Lewis have said, we were all as vulnerable as the people that we were supposed to care for.
Absolutely.
Perhaps I can add as well.
Please do.
I think that the pandemic just was really tough on everybody and globally, and we were all suffering together. But I think it really challenged the three basic things that are very important to human beings. One, am I safe? And we all felt very unsafe. Two, am I loved? And three, am I connected? And for me, those were the three pivotal areas that we tried to bring into the student support space. The sense of safety, that it's okay. we have resources. We can manage. And empowering students and ourselves to feel resourced. And then, are we loved? Are we connected? And I think for us to hold that space, and even over the internet, even over Zoom, even over Teams, to hold that space and still allow for that feeling of connection, that we are together in this and that we are here. So I think people felt really scared that they were alone. There was a lot of bereavement. There was a lot of uncertainty. And I think our job was really to try and hold that space as best we could.
Thank you. It really talks to issues of resources. How the university realized that things are not the same. You don't just go out issuing data anyhow, but suddenly the university came through and that connectivity had to be offered to students and to staff. That's great. Maybe let's go to another question, which is still related, really. But it's looking now at the practices that emerged during lockdown, which we want to take forward. Surely there are things that we never thought of before that suddenly came through and we want to take with us towards the future. What are these practices? Things that we never thought would work, especially in student support services. What to start? I like
I'm
it
just
when-
I'm just going to give it a very small start, but I think when we looked at what had transpired over the 2 years, so in a time of crisis, there's often chaos. But that chaos and that kind of urgency gives rise to creativity and innovation. And for me, what came through as a promising practice was the creativity and the innovation within student support services. And we actually had to dig deep, and we didn't realize that we had it within us to create those kinds of images and infographics and work on social media platforms. So we actually were really, really digging deep to make all that we're offering in that point in time relevant, responsive, and meaningful. We had to understand it from the perspective of a student. So for me, the creativity is what stands out as a promising practice that I think all student support services is carrying that through now in their work. And as well as we found working virtually and now aligning to the teaching and learning policy for hybrid work allows us to widen the access. So you can have a larger audience virtually, and you can still offer hybrid intervention contact in individual sessions as well.
Well, maybe that creativity, you're still going to talk more about it when you share with us in the launch that's happening just after this talk. But the main thing here was we needed to look deep and be creative and be innovative. And guess what? We saved our students. That's great. Anything else?
Perhaps I could add, I think, crises present both opportunity and obviously danger and threat. And I think the opportunity to automate a lot of our services was present, but we had to bear in mind the very strict parameters of confidentiality and of the various regulatory bodies that we serve under. So that was a very important thing, to align it to the regulatory bodies, like the Health Professions Council of South Africa, for example. So we were able to automate our booking system, for example, so that was great because now people can book anytime from any space, can book, make appointments, cancel, and so on. We were able to automate our learning enhancement checklist, which is our AMS intervention. We were able to automate that. We were able to automate our client satisfaction survey. So I think it really was a very important opportunity to make use of tech in a way which has actually been really very efficient and very time-saving, and has enabled us to continue our work quite seamlessly, actually.
Especially the issue of maintaining confidentiality when you don't even see the person you're talking to, because they're on the other side and you don't even know who else is there. That was something else, and it really needed us to be guided by those policies, by those regulations. Thank you. Do you want to add?
Sure, thank you. I think I'd like to also add collaboration to what Dr. Pillay mentioned, creativity. So as a team, I think we really worked collaboratively and closely in a partnership to ensure that we exploited the digital platform as much as possible to ensure access to our students. So we recognized that our students also needed to access resources in their own time when they could, when they had the private spaces to, and when they required that kind of resource. So what we did was we did develop our website, particularly during that period when we were struck by these challenges and the uncertainty. And our students required a sense of anchoring, not only in society, but within themselves. So our counselors were amazing and resourceful. We had counselors that went around and taught themselves how to create videos. They put up videos, they created blogs. They also created audios to help students with relaxation and just anxiety management, because it was an incredibly anxiety-provoking time for our students. So these were all uploaded to our website, and we also had videos from students who inspired students to hang in there. And I think that's one of the key issues, is students want to hear how other students are coping, how they're managing. And I think that was one of the issues of going onto the online platforms and having group sessions and being able to provide that sense of connection in those group sessions, being able to have students listen to others' narratives, how they're coping and how their narratives are unfolding. It was a difficult time, and I think we tried our best to look at every possibility to reach our students.
So right now we have a bag full of things that we're taking forward into the future to enhance student support services, to enhance access to these services. Perhaps you have one more thing to add?
Well, I think was really going to just say something similar to what Ishara had said. For me, what I think was really what we take away is the acknowledgement of the connectedness between all of us here. And especially if you're thinking about students and student support, it does not rest with any one particular individual or division. So what I found really remarkable and encouraging in all of the chaos and uncertainty was just the magnitude, the sheer magnitude for developing networks, for reaching out, for making connections. And again, not just at an institutional level, but for our students as well within their communities. Because we were not working on site, we had to reach out to the service providers. We had to develop those networks. So it really took community engagement to another level. But again, bringing it back to the student, so much, I know thinking about our own work over the last 2 years, we did not really do too much of long-term psychodynamic therapy, for example. We looked a lot at just developing the tools to cope with what was happening now, so that resilience, that we observed at institutional level, at our divisions, and in our students. And remember, when working with our students, it also went into their homes and communities. For me, that is what we need to be building on and taking forward as well.
Thank you. Let me tell you what I observed from outside as a Dean of Teaching and Learning. It was also the interconnectivity among yourselves.
Yeah.
It was so nice to actually experience that a student in humanities could get services from the health sciences, from wherever, because of that one line that we had. That was one very nice thing to observe, to say you don't say no, you don't belong to humanities, you don't belong to health sciences, and therefore just observing that working together among yourselves was quite good from a person who was sitting outside. I think you need to give yourself a big clap, you yourselves. Okay, let's try now and focus and deal with other specific issues. The one that I'm having here is student mental health. Student mental health is a global concern. Tell us more about your experiences in student support services and what we can do effectively to manage student mental health concerns.
Okay, perhaps I should try.
They trust you to be the first one.
So, I guess for me, there were three major themes besides academic risk. Okay, so besides that, we're talking about mental health. So there was depression, there was anxiety, and there was, I think, one of the most concerning ones was the suicidality. And I think we've seen that across tertiary institutions and even globally, is the increase in suicidal ideation. And of course, that was a very big concern. And, you know, to lose young lives, people who die by suicide, is very tragic and very difficult for everybody concerned. So we spent a lot of time trying to look at how to strengthen our resourcefulness with regard to suicidality. So, you know, referral to psychiatric institutions and so on was very difficult at that time. It was extremely difficult, so we had to come up with more creative ways of actually managing the situation and providing the safe space, the containing space for the students. And I think that we relied a lot on the partnership we had with the academic staff and also the professional services staff. So, for example, the clinic, RMS, and also the ADOs and so on. So where they had picked up issues to refer timeously so that we could try and intervene early. But of course, everybody was working from different places, so it was all very difficult. So I think that was for me one of the most challenging aspects was the suicidality. And I think it was very important to have those partnerships and also to develop programs that supported students so that they felt that there was somebody there listening, somebody there available to assist them. And that was hard because I think people felt very isolated, very alone a lot of the time. So I think for me those were the big things. But I think what is very gratifying for me is to see how many students were coming for personal development. So not necessarily pathology as such or difficulties, but actually to grow and enhance themselves and improve their lives. And I think that was very nice because I think student support was starting to be seen more as something that can be enabling rather than something that was just remedial. So that was very encouraging.
Oh, thank you. The multidisciplinarity in taking care of the mind, in taking care of the mental health concerns was the issue that I'm getting out of here. You want to add?
So, you know, we had sadly a completed suicide, and I think many of the other colleges do. And I think within student support service, that's a very painful experience for us. You know, we cannot be everywhere all the time, and we try our best with the strategies and programs. So completed suicide is really very painful. We did note a peak in presentation with mental health, exacerbation of those with known mental illness diagnosis. And, you know, we wouldn't say that is necessarily more issues of mental health. It could be more focus on it due to the COVID, that there's more reporting as well. So that could also be one of the contributing factors. But for me, what we learned is what we learned when mental health presentations came to the fore was how prepared are we as UKZN to respond to mental health presentations. How do we manage our students promptly and with dignity? And I'm not just talking about student support services where we have the competencies and the professional conduct requirements, etc. But as a university, how do we support our students? How do we respond? Do we even have the policy in place that guides any space, any department within the university on how to respond to a student with mental health? What is our strategy, which we still need to develop? And what kind of framework guides mental health intervention? So I think we learned where the gaps are at this point in time, but we also identified what we have and the challenges with them. So for us, a functional, effective, efficient after-hours emergency service is critical. It's critical. If we look at the stats from SADC, it peaked during the lockdown. And it says so much about what our students had undergone and staff. So, you know, aligned to social distancing was the experience of social isolation and loneliness. And that exacerbated everything else that was going on with our students. So the challenges for me, and I recall an attempted suicide case where data accuracy became an issue. If you look on the system and you're wanting to contact the police or the ambulance to go to the student's home because you're intervening with a student after hours online and you don't have an address on the system. You have a location or a lot number. And many of our students do have that, a location or a lot number. So how do you send the police to the lot number if that's not available on Google Maps? So those are some of the challenges we identified in intervening in crisis and urgent matters.
Crisis intervention was needed, but it also couldn't just be done by one person.
I think an important factor when we think about mental health is, as an institution, but also again, I want to emphasize that we don't work in silos. I know we talk about it at the university in terms of divisions, but if we don't recognize, again, that it requires cognizance and work with the communities, our society, where our students come from, then we're missing a very, very big part. So how do we as an institution develop trust? So we've had in our college, unfortunately this year, 2 students who did commit suicide. Very painful, very sad. And when we were thinking about what had happened, again, what prevented students from reaching out? So our services exist, yes, even in the absence of policy or clear protocols, we are still able to mobilize and respond in moments of crisis. So what happens to those students who are in real distress and reach that point where they go through? You've got to actually have a lot of courage to be able to go through it. But there's also a real sense of hopelessness at that point. So for me, I would think that when we think about mental health, we also have to think about the context. So how do we create the trust so the students can trust systems that if I go there, I can get help, or you know, and it's not just again about student support services as in our unit, but any other division. Linked to that then, is in the recognition of not just the students' agency in it, but all of us and the responsibility that we have. So if you think about transformation, for example, we have to think about the language that we use. And every single one, this is my challenge to all of us here, going forward, if we become mindful of the language that we use in our day-to-day interactions, what do we tell our students about mental health? Do we pathologize it? Because when there's stigma attached, students are going to be less likely to want to access those services. They're going to be less likely. Do we encourage sharing? And we spoke about confidentiality earlier, etc. Do they feel safe enough to come to Angelina and say, this is what's going on in my life? So that is a kind of challenge that I'm putting out as well to all of us here, but to the institution overall in terms of thinking about mental health.
Angelina, speaking about something very important, mindfulness and the language we use. Are we making people feel scared to even come through, because already by coming to us, we've already pathologized, you are ill. And I like the fact that when we're preparing these questions, we're clear that we were talking about student mental health and student mental health concerns. We avoided illness. Maybe we are correct in the language as we move forward. Thank you very much. Anything else to add before I go to the next one?
Thank you, Prof. I think one of the key issues that we had to engage with from the beginning was stigmatization related to mental health, particularly with our male students. The majority of our students that access student counseling are female. So what we've noted is it needs to be integrated into the curriculum. So we had a very close and collaborative relationship with the academics in our colleges. So we had our academics ensuring that we were integrated into orientation. When there were issues that came up, we were invited. So there were mental health issues, there were issues around depression. So we were invited into the lectures, into the classrooms to engage with the students. And that has really helped. We've seen a significant progression in terms of students accessing the service. So we've had groups recently, mental health awareness groups, depression, and students are coming in their numbers because they are interested to know how to take care of themselves. And it is evident that they don't have this knowledge, and they want to. They are thirsty to know how to take care of themselves. And we do have now male and female students accessing these groups. So I think it's really about us ensuring that we are a health-promoting institution, that we need to be ensuring that mental health is very much part of being healthy, both as an individual and as an institution. So it needs to be filtered to every part of our university. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just add, I think somewhat forgotten were our postgrads in all of this. And I'm so glad to see that there's so much emphasis in this program on postgrads as well. I think they felt very isolated often, and I think we've had to really make concerted, intentional effort to actually make sure that they are included and that they are not forgotten. We don't want them to ever be forgotten. They're very important.
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing that. And I'm sure it's nicely covered in the program. I'm just feeling slightly uncomfortable because I'm going to take us back to undergrad in my next question. You know, it's often said that the first year is considered to be a make or a break year. Tell us more about what we as UKZN are doing in supporting the first year students, the so-called F10s.
You know, across student support service, I think when it comes to supporting F10s, it's not student support services on its own. So I could speak for the College of Health Sciences, but a promising practice that came to, so we're very mindful of the transitional challenges of the first-time entry students into university. And we, within student support services, have those competencies to be able to dig deep and probe and find out more about students' needs and students' characters and what is needed for the student to succeed. So I think that's what lies within student support services, those competencies and the ability to develop those interventions. But supporting first-time entry students requires a university-wide approach. So, you know, the onboarding is so critical to transition and adjustment. So whilst we have college programs like we have SWAT at the College of Health Sciences, the digitized pilot FYE last year, it's still in a pilot, but it's a promising practice to better support first year so that all students have an equal quality of experience. So we're wanting a similar experience, not a better experience in this college as opposed to another. So a similar experience is what you would get via that program. I think the pilot has taught us that there's many areas for development, there's a need for review, but it's a very good start to onboard and transition our students.
Thanks, Suloshni. The first year is such a critical moment, and I think the student support services, particularly for our division, I'm talking about our division here, has so much to offer in terms of just how do students navigate the multiple transitions. And with the pandemic, we have to add other levels of the transitions. It's you know, we make certain assumptions when a student enters, and I like the fact that Sulosh spoke about and used the word equality, because somehow I think when students enter, we might possibly think that they all are the same. They come in with the same set of experiences, but in fact, they are so different. We're not dealing with a homogeneous group. So if we then had to go down further with our first years, it's so important to then look at the profile of our students, and there's vast differences just among our colleges alone. But overall at UKZN as well, we do tend to draw a lot of students from quintile 1 to 3 schools. So what does that tell us about our student profile, our first years? But that said, what about their individual histories and experiences? And I think we have an important role in not just being there for one-on-one, but to provide tools to our students so that they can start navigating those transitions. I think it's a huge task in terms of, for any institution, because again, if you look at where our students come from, and you look at the differences just in schooling and the gaps in not just the curricula, but resources, etc., and the skills that students have when they do come to first year. Again, the importance of recognizing that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach for first year students. But what our keynote speaker spoke about, the empathy, those critical skills that you start developing, that you start tapping in right from the start. I think SSS has a really, really important role to play in developing those lifelong skills that students need to navigate not just the rest of their academic careers to postgraduate level as well. But in their lives as adults, as citizens of our country.
Thank you. As we move to, I see you just raised. You want to add? I don't want to lose that one little.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yes, I also want to add that, particularly with our first years, I think they're looking for a whole student experience. And I think we've tried our best as a university to work collaboratively. So they need to be able to see us all working together and offering them this experience. But I think added to that and fundamental to our support offered to our students is the peer mentorship programs, peer wellness mentors, our first year experience mentors, our academic mentors, because these are the people they relate to, people who they can identify with. And so as first years, if we can have and support, so we as student support services do train those mentors. We train them in how to communicate, how to relate to students, how to manage students more effectively, to provide them with an integrated set of resources so they know, they feel empowered, they know who to go to and who would be able to assist them with the different services. So I think that we as an institution need to work on providing that whole student experience, and we need to ensure that, particularly with our first years, that they feel safe, that they feel supported, and that they feel that they belong. And I think with COVID-19, we've experienced, our students have experienced such a huge chasm, such a huge disconnection. And I think that we need to, now when they return, we need to really work on building relationships with our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You want to add one last shot on this one before we move to the
So just to add on that, our students enter with such diverse histories, be it political, personal, economic histories. And that plays itself out in the lecture room. And when we look at progression rates and performance, we tend to make comments that the student is failing. Very often, the institutional infrastructure fails the student. And we needed to actually flip that in a way to look at how do we, as an institution, fail the student by virtue of an inadequate infrastructure. So if we're not cognizant of the student's life experiences, what the student brings into the institution, the indigenous knowledge and how it plays out in the lecture room, we're going to miss a critical chunk about that student's character, to be able to better support the student. So I think layers of support that Ishara spoke about, that the colleges are offering, is so critical to have someone almost walking the journey with the student. And for the university to be mindful of, are we having an infrastructure that supports the student holistically?
I know you want to move on, but
Yeah,
I think
fine.
it would be remiss not to mention the systemic aspects that you've just spoken about. And I'm thinking particularly of things such as food security, socioeconomic challenges and so on, and just basic safety and security. And systemically, are we actually supporting our students enough with regard to those? Because if we listen to Janine and the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're hungry, if you aren't safe, if you're being mugged, if your stuff's being stolen and so on, what kind of experience is that going to be for you? So these are systemic things that we also need to be dealing with in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. And how can our university support our students systemically and broadly?
So student success is everybody's business, and it has to be holistic. You cannot succeed on an empty stomach, while you also cannot succeed if you are feeling unsafe. I was going to talk about GBV, but I think I'm always biased when it comes to that, so I won't ask for that today. Instead, I'm going to ask us to look at how best, or what steps do you think can be taken to foster greater collaboration about all the AMS practitioners in the university. And these are really our parting shots now. We are finalizing. It could be anything, because at the end of the day, we really want to have an enhanced and strengthened and a very strong student support in the university. And we want to make sure that everyone in the AMS practitioners is benefiting from this.
I'm going to start this time.
Thank you.
I think right now, for me, this is an absolute exemplar of the direction that we need to continue moving in. I think there is so much already in place that we need to build on. So the fact that Student Support Services has been given this platform at an AMS, I mean, I have to give my hand out to the College of Health Sciences for this, because it already shows that shift that we're speaking about, that we recognize it's not just about how many tutors we can make available. It's not just about are we giving them the admissions processes in a certain way, etc. We are recognizing that there are so many multiple facets to a student's experience from first year, but actually prospective onwards, right? So in terms of AMS, having dialogues that we formalize, the partnerships, the collaborations that we're speaking about, that already happens in so many ways, needs to be something that we take forward, perhaps in a more formalized way. I think every single college has had such rich experience from COVID, despite the pain and the loss. And we need to be looking at best practice, sharing it. So again, platforms like this are really great because we get to showcase best practice. It becomes a way for us to learn from each other. And it's really about us becoming receptive and open to that kind of engagement and dialogue. If we still keep our student and be focused on the student while recognizing it's not about us doing something to the student, but perhaps with students, then that would be definitely a way to go forward and strengthen what we are already have got started as well. Thanks, Chair.
And perhaps formalize all AMS practitioners, mainstreaming them and making sure that the resources are there. We're not relying on the outside funders for some of the AMS practitioners. That's just me. Maybe you have more. Let's see.
You took the words out of my mouth about external support, but I just want to extend on what Angeline has spoken about, about formal collaboration. I think many years back, around 2005, just post the merger, when we were reviewing student performance, and one of the recommendations from the Council on Higher Education was to have formal AMS structures and strategies that collaborated. So I cannot emphasize, and we do have that, so I know in our college we have that. I cannot emphasize more the value of formalized arrangements, joint partnerships, working together. The students that come through our doors are all our students. There's no other student. As the minister said, there's no other special set of students anyway. The ones that come through our door, they're ours. They belong to all of us. We belong to them. We are there to work with them. And I think the moment we see that all of us are critical role players in the student's journey, that we need to plan with the student and not for the student, and draw the student in as active participants in their own educational journey. And that would help strengthen collaboration, not just with the role players in AMS, but with the student who is center of the education process. So for me, that's very important that we have that kind of strengthened arrangement. And within student support services, we deal with student data. I always say we're the richest at the university when it comes to student data, because we work with students, we understand the needs, we understand the journey, and we have the competency to be able to probe further. We've not actually developed that kind of scholarship where we would now move forward on research and evidence-based. So we're starting, but I think we need to strengthen that kind of scholarship within academic monitoring and support and teaching and learning. Thanks.
Thank you so much. You won't believe, but we've been chatting for almost an hour. And I can keep you here. For the rest of the day, I'm enjoying this conversation. However, time is never on our side. I would like you to just say one last thing to close off as we move to the next presentation.
Just thank you, and it is such a privilege and a joy to be part of this. And for me, embedding academic support into the curriculum is going to be critical, and that we prepare our institutions, not just see the students as underprepared, but we need to prepare our institutions and ourselves as well as students. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope it's been useful.
I think she was talking on behalf of everyone, but I see Ishara wants to say the final one, even if it's just thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you to Dr. Pillay as well for the idea to have this session. We appreciate it. And thank you to all of you. I think this has set the exemplar, and going forward, we'd like to work more collaboratively as an institution, collaboratively, and to be able to consult as much as possible, communicate as much as possible, sustainably, to support our students the best we can and to ensure their success. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Colleagues, you've been a wonderful audience. I didn't hear a single cell phone going off. I think we want to give ourselves a big round of applause as they go down back to their spaces. Thank you so much. And this water was meant for us. That was different. That was lovely. I wish I could keep it more, but the program does not allow me. So I'm going to move on to the next one. They're really making me work. I think I've paid for the times that I didn't attend the meetings of planning this program. So the next session is, it's still in the plenary. It's about the SWOT automation launch. This is a launch of a project. It's not a project anymore. It's a product emanating from the project that we have been involved with, which comes from the creativity that Dr. Saloshni Pillay spoke about, that was brought about the students' needs during COVID, but also things that we've always been thinking about on how best do we make sure that our services are accessible to students, how best do we make sure that we have all the data available that we can use to make decisions based on the services that we've offered or based on programs that we have for students. How best can we automate everything that we do so that at a click of a button, we can actually identify the student at risk, but not only just identify the student at risk, but immediately make sure that referrals are made on behalf of that student, and also making sure that the person on the other side is already waiting for that student to come and receive the services. And also, how best do we make sure that you, at just that click of a button, the manager can also see how this case is being managed. So this is what we are launching as a program that is in the College of Health Sciences, and hopefully, perhaps after this launch, the whole university is going to adopt this. It started off as a very small project, a research project as well, that has the research team, and the research team members are quite many. I will just mention the ones that are coming off head. It was myself, it was Dr. S. Pillay, it was Dr. S. Kumalo from Humanities, I think in the School of Education, Mr. Shandu in ICS, who helped us very much in terms of making sure that we even know the language of ICS so that that automation can happen. It's our research assistant, Ms. Zama Mchali. But of late, we are also being joined by Professor Shenuka Singh. You may remember what Professor Janine Lewis said about the TAU projects, that they start off as college, but we are building onto them. I was in TAU, I started leading that project, but I'm giving the baton to the next TAU fellow. In our case, it is Professor Shenuka Singh, but she's going to be joining the team. As we launch this, she is now going to be getting onto the actual research, because the last 2 years have been in developing this automated technology-enhanced student support service that we are going to be launching. I'm not going to talk much on this. Dr. S. Pillay is the one that is going to take us through. And then, of course, if there are other members of the research team, I'm sure they would want to come up and support Dr. S. Pillay. But it's been a lovely journey. We've learned so many things about how these things are developed. Dr. Pillay, please come through as we launch our SWOT, automated SWOT system.
Good day, colleagues. Professor Duma has provided an introduction to the SWOT launch. So I'm going to give you some background context and some of the information around the development of SWOT automation and what it can do for us currently being piloted within the College of Health Sciences. So as Prof. Duma noted, a key outcome of a research project was to automate the SWOT program. This was brought on by the sudden closure of universities due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And at this point, the offices of the Dean Teaching and Learning and Student Support Services had to reassess the effectiveness of the strategies in place to engage our students and to promote student support and success. So SWOT stands for Student Wellness and Academic Transformation, a different way of supporting students for success focused on a holistic approach. SWOT is offered by Student Support Services in the College of Health Sciences. And we noted that the transition to remote teaching and learning made it possible for students to access learning material from anywhere. But they were not able to fully engage with Student Support Services. The need for the development of a blended, integrated, technology-enhanced strategy to promote student engagement was identified at that point, and this was early last year, hence the SWOT automation project. To this end, we engaged with University ICS, Academic Computing Division, to partner in the development of a technology-enhanced program. The project has the support of the College of Health Sciences leadership, the Access and Success Advisory Committee, and is funded by UTLO. The project has ethical clearance and gatekeeper permission, and the research team straddles Health Sciences, the College of Humanities School of Education, and ICS. The SWOT automation underwent a process of design and development by ICS-appointed external service providers. The program has seen several iterations over the years, and key challenges that we noted prior to automation were the manual processes to review and consolidate large amounts of student data, which are labor-intensive and inefficient. The aim of SWOT, so a little bit about SWOT and what it's been doing, is to offer a coordinated, comprehensive, undergraduate support program where all schools in the college and wider university role players have clear roles, responsibilities, and accountability processes. and work in an integrated manner to ensure that equity of access translates to equity of outcomes in minimum time. The SWOT program compels collaboration. I think that is what we enjoy most about it. This collaboration allows us to foster cross-functional dialogue, for example, between the ADOs and student support services, or between academic leaders and student support services. It creates an interrelatedness between the inside and the outside the lecture room experience. And it provides a seamless learning environment between academic and non-academic spaces. Thus far, it's created coherence in the student's learning experience and enhances social integration by focusing on the whole student in the university journey. SWOT is comprehensive. It has several pillars or programs designed to enhance student engagement and success, with programs based within student support services and some based within disciplines or schools. The idea with SWOT is to have touch points at every step of the student's journey. And the SWOT program also allows for collaboration with key central role players, such as the Division of Student Residence Affairs, Disability Support Services, the AIDS program, and Campus Health Services. This is what we currently have as a manual process within SWOT, and I will show you where we have moved to some kind of automation. So SWOT follows the process of engagement from entry into university and remains with the student until they graduate. It commences with the academic orientation and integration process, which enhances transition to the university. The full AMS team meets the student at this point, followed by the extended timetabled, discipline-specific orientation to support the transition into the lecture room. Academic support and peer mentoring are initiated and continue from this point onwards. A wellness assessment is released in March to allow for the timeliest identification of factors impacting student success. And students are invited for support services based on their wellness profile. Tracking and monitoring in collaboration with the ADOs allows us to timeously identify students at risk for underperformance. The changes to this model that we've been using for many years is the new digitized FYE program implemented university-wide by UTLO and piloted in 2021. And the current change is the automated aspect of SWOT, allowing for a hybrid approach with the wellness assessment automated, profiling automated, notifications and reminders, but with intervention being offered both virtually as well as contact. So what is the learning theory, so what is the framework or the theory that underpins the SWOT automation? The key objective of the automated system was to promote student support. My apologies, colleagues. So this mouse technology support is not working. It's skipping to the next slide. And the intention, the key objectives was to promote engagement with support services, promote sustainable academic success and holistic student wellness during the first academic year, and to ensure student engagement, academic success, and holistic student wellness during the first academic year. So we've built on each of the variables within the objectives. So the research project is informed by the pedagogy of connectivism. And that was new for me as well. Connectivism is a relatively new learning theory for the digital age. This theory embraces and recognizes the importance of technology in learning and student engagement. And the constant connectedness affords students an opportunity to make choices about their learning. Connectivists afford students the ability to learn through connections with the networks, where knowledge is available and distributed across networks such as Google, YouTube, social networks, and collaboration tools. Hence, connectivism is also referred to as distributed learning. Known connectivists, if you want to research this or Google them, are Stephen Downes and George Siemens. The key assumptions of the SWOT automation project are that technology-enhanced model will improve student engagement, which will have a ripple effect on enhancing student communication, wellness, and overall success. It will allow for prompt tracking within the wellness domains as well as academic progress. The automated system offers key functionalities, such as automated communication, scheduling of sessions, tracking attendance, allocating tasks, and escalating tasks if they're not managed with an agreed upon service level agreement, and of course, case and comments history for developing reports. The design of SWOT required several discussions on the current processes with a view to understanding the as-is process and to then design the to-be process. It was noted that student support services collaborates with multiple role players on integrated programs. And their roles were critical to student success, hence all role players were considered in the system design. System design made use of technology already available and customized this to ensure alignment to the needs of the university and the college. The project followed a systems development approach designed in manageable phases or sub-processes as reflected. And these sub-processes included the wellness assessment process, the student counselor sub-process, the academic development sub-process, the reporting sub-process, and the first year experience sub-process. Agile, a popular project management methodology, was applied to allow for the development of an iteration with limited functionality to ensure delivery and thereafter to add on functionalities in further iterations. So this slide reflects to you that the systems are designed in such a way that the different sub-processes relate to each other. For example, when the SWOT assessment is released, both the student counselor and academic development officer processes are initiated. If a student has a need in the academic domain, that case would be referred to an academic development officer. But if the case has the profile reflects a psychosocial domain, that would be referred to a student counselor. The wellness assessment has been categorized with red flag questions ranked as priority 1 to 4 based on urgency. The automated system will monitor and assign all red flag questions to the appropriate personnel, namely an ADO and/or student counselor, depending on the nature of the issue. Following the identification of red flag students, the counselors and front desk assistants are notified by the system. The enhanced SWOT system will record and monitor the response rate, the red flags, the referrals, and escalations, and auto-generate a dashboard. As part of the onboarding process, the SWOT system will welcome students to the College of Health Sciences, share the array of services offered by student support services, and invite students to access the services. And what I've presented to you is a template that goes out as part of the notification to the students. The wellness assessment, which forms the foundation of the SWOT intervention, will be released to students via this communication with a link to access the assessment. SMS technology will be used to ensure that students receive notifications and reminders. All roles on the SWOT automation will receive tasks as you would receive an email in your inbox, indicating what actions need to be done within a task. Cases will have levels of priorities, and each priority will have its own service level agreement, meaning the turnaround time. Example, a student council will receive a task, and if they do not action that task within the stipulated service level agreement, for example, 8 hours, their manager will receive a notification for their intervention. Aligned to the POPI Act, only registered professionals will have access to any personal, confidential information of their client following the informed consent process and disclaimer. The system will allow for student bookings to be made on Outlook, and one is then able to track the uptake and access. The student then receives an email and an SMS with the details of the appointment. ICS is still to enable the SMS, but we intend for this to be provided both as a notification from the system as well as an SMS. The system allows for accountability processes, tracking and monitoring case history. Authorized roles will be able to access the entire history of the case from the time of the assessment to who attended to the student and what action was taken. Student wellness profiles will be available individually for individual intervention, as well as consolidated profiles per discipline for reporting processes at school and discipline teaching and learning committees. The design of the system is aimed at making the system not only seamless for the student, but to all the roles that are required to work on the system. We will be able to track student engagement and the time frames for access and uptake. For example, if the notification went out within 2 days, what was the uptake? Within a week, what was the uptake? And this will tell us a little bit more about the engagement of students with the processes. The college, schools, and disciplines will have access to reports via student support services on student engagement and wellness interventions, and will be able to use such data when making decisions on academic support, academic risk, and academic exclusion. Wellness profiles will be generated for each student and remains as long as the student remains at UKZN. The system will also allow for tracking of support to students and compliance with service level agreements. So one is able to identify how many cases were escalated to a student counselor from the automated system and how many are still to be booked into the diary. Student support services will also have access to comments made throughout the history of the service related to all psychoeducation offered to students as well. Aligned to the key objectives of the automation, we anticipate that technology-enhanced tools will assist with tracking and monitoring uptake of the SWOT assessment, alerting, notifying, and informing of the primary issues impacting students, monitoring student engagement with their individual interventions, and analyzing and correlating student engagement with academic performance. So some progress on the launch, because we did go live on the 28th of October this year, and we piloted with the first year cohort in the School of Nursing and Public Health. For us to go live, we all had to have our PCs configured by ICS. Licenses were allocated to the 10 users. These are the authorized role players. And a dry run was implemented prior to the pilot. Reminders were sent on the pilot release via the automated SWOT system. This table reflects the uptake based on the system reminders. So when the tool was released, without any reminders, 5 students completed. And as you progress down the left of the table, you find as reminders are sent out, the uptake increases. And it tells you a little bit about the importance of the communication for engagement. Of the 80 nursing students, we've had 13 that completed the assessment. 17 have started but have not completed, meaning they've started and saved to complete later. 50 have not started. 8 priority 1 cases have been identified. 1 priority 2 case has been identified. And all students were profiled under the psychosocial domain. And I think it's consistent with the time in the year right now. With regards to referrals and escalations, all priority 1 and 2 are actioned by the front desk assistant who does bookings. The actions include either an in-person or a virtual appointment, or referral to another stakeholder, and in this case it was referral to finance. Priority 1 cases not attended to were referred to myself, and thus far 8 cases were referred to me that were not attended to within the service level agreement. And when we looked into why 8 cases, priority 1 cases were not attended to, we identified that the system was counting the weekend as a work day. And therefore, we cannot exclude the day. We therefore increase the hours on the service level agreement. So response rate is within the working week and the working day. Key functionalities have been effected on the pilot, such as reminders, notifications, referrals, and escalations. The way forward for us: to go live with all first-year students in the College of Health Sciences in 2003, to develop the remainder of the sub-processes. Remember I spoke about all the functionalities, and we start with 1 iteration and we develop a base so that we could escalate as we progress. And student success metrics such as retention and throughput rates may provide a critical impetus to scale up the use of blended, integrated, technology-enhanced strategies across the university from 2024. And colleagues, that brings me to the end of what the SWOT automation comprises, our experiences with going live with the 80 students in first year School of Nursing and Public Health.
Dr. Pillay, thank you very much. It's a pity we couldn't actually get you into doing it and making your hands dirty. It's such an exciting program. Just by completing the questionnaire as a student, suddenly you get an email saying, thank you for completing this. Please see so and so on such and such a day, which means something has already happened. Somebody already knows you have an issue that needs to be attended to, but it's taking away that thing of, please go make an appointment. The appointment is already made on your behalf. I can't wait to see this going live for all the students in the College of Health Sciences come beginning of the year, but also maybe being adopted by the whole university. I so much look forward to this happening. But anyway, let's move on. You've been too quiet, and I'm sure there are a number of burning questions, starting from the moment we started with the DVC welcoming us, to the time of our keynote speaker, to the chat on the couch, to the automation of SWOT. I think we really need to start thinking about those questions and hearing them if they have been jotted down. I don't know who is going to assist me with the roving mic, but I am sure that has also been taken care of. So let me hear. Any questions on the whole session, the whole morning session? Whichever you, yes, sir. There's a hand here. Who is helping with the roving mic? Because of the lights, I can't even see the faces. I don't know whether it's the light or it's old age. So if I don't call you by your name, please, oh, it was Prof first. Prof, that's fine, you will be the first because it's ladies first. Thereafter, we'll go back to the gentleman. I'm sure he doesn't mind.
Thank you very much, Prof. Duma, and thanks to all the speakers and Dr. Saloshni for the great presentation on the SWOT. My question is really around the SWOT. Maybe Saloshni, I don't know if you can come to the front so that you can address some of the questions that may come forward. I really want to congratulate you on the work that you've done and the launching of the SWOT today. We really look forward to it providing answers to a number of questions. One of the questions that I have is food security has become one of the biggest issues in the institution. And I would like to know, where do you refer to as students come forward who is responsible for taking the food security issue? Such students that you've identified as food insecure, where do they go to? That's the first one. The second one is, through my association with the campus health at the university, I've realized that there are a lot of suicide among students. I just want us maybe to understand a bit from the SWAT program how we are going to be handling the issue of suicide, starting from profiling and how you will refer these students and what you would recommend going forward, and maybe even in terms of services that we may not be providing yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think on food security, my colleagues may also want to contribute from student support services, but the colleges itself do not provide meals. I think you're aware that we have an executive leading the food security strategy at UKZN. What we do have is students that are identified within counseling sessions or referred to counseling who are experiencing food security. These students are referred for services to the center currently at the university. Whether the university has a sustainable strategy for food security is still a question, because the issue of food security is not going away. It's been there for as far back as I can recall, with multiple presentations being made to vice chancellors for funding. And I've always asked, if food is a basic need, why do we have to make a motivation to consider supporting students who are hungry? And for us, it's very simple. If a basic need is not met, one cannot function within the classroom. And if one cannot function within the classroom, this leads to academic progress issues. And we've actually, from student support, have asked the university leadership to consider the food security and its implications from the perspective of retention and throughput. Because throughput means a subsidy is secured. And it means that we've got to provide optimal support to exit that student or to progress that student. So there's a bigger and a priority agenda for the institution to consider. My own view is that we do not have a sustainable system in place. We are working towards it. On what SWAT does around food security is we've got, the wellness tool has got 7 domains. One of the domains on psychosocial looks at issues of food security. So if a student, for example, answers the question, I have not had a meal in the past few days, that student is considered a priority 1 and escalated for urgent intervention. That urgent intervention means that the student will then be referred for meal packs. So that's what identifies students with food security as a priority case. That's just on food security, and my colleagues will contribute in a bit. On mental health presentations, one of the key domains within SWAT is focusing on mental health. We have a set of questions within the tool that tap into just that, whether it's suicidal ideation, loneliness, loss of hope, despair. Any student that completes the assessment and ticks on any one of those questions is escalated for intervention. So those are priority 1 cases. When basic needs are not met and students are unwell, those are priority 1 cases that are escalated for intervention. Now, when it comes to supporting students with mental health presentations, I think College of Health Sciences, we do have a very good infrastructure in place. We developed the Student Impairment Committee, the Student Impairment Protocol. The students in the College of Health Sciences are expected to register as interns and as health professionals. And as such, they need to be fit to practice. Fitness to practice meaning you need to meet certain criteria to be emotionally well in the clinical setting. So we are fortunate that we have the Student Impairment Protocol, which is aligned to the HPCSA, the Nursing Council, and the Pharmacy Council. Provides us with criteria to assess student wellness. Students that are identified as being unwell from a mental health perspective are actually managed at the school level. We have an informal process via the school with the school academic leader, via a case management process with the student counselor and the ADO. meets with the student to work on what are the student's needs, how can the student remain in the system with the necessary support. However, you will get students that would not comply, would not want to take medication, or would have frequent relapses. Such cases are escalated to the College Impairment Review Committee, which is comprised of managers, student support, the deans deans and head of school, external psychiatrists, internal school clinical medicine psychiatrists. We bring in expertise where we need. For example, if it's medical legal expertise, we bring that in if there's a contention around the decision made. But the mandate of the Student Impairment Committee in the College of Health Sciences is 3. To make a decision on continued study, continued registration, to make a decision on conditional registration, meaning the student will stay, but these are the conditions for all of us as authorized role players and the student to meet in terms of the support, or to suspend studies because the student needs to be admitted. So that's the mandate of the College Impairment Committee. We've also managed to secure, Ranita is here, I'm sure she'd be able to advise, a CARB code, the highest academic decision-making body in our college, a code for a student that needs to suspend study because of mental health issues. And we know that when that student is returning to the system, probably took a term out or a year out, that student has to come back into the system with the current psychiatric evaluation confirming suitability and stability to return. We also find students that want to be exited from the study program, or the student needs to be exited because the presentation is intractable at the point of graduation. And then we have a duty as the college, within the schools, the academic leaders need to then escalate to the professional council. So that's what we currently have in place as a college, but SWOT prioritizes mental health cases.
Thank you, Dr. Pillay. There was another hand, and maybe don't go sit down, rather come up, because I assume there will be other questions. As you come with your question, please introduce yourself for both my sake, because I can't see, but also for the rest of the audience to know who you are. Thank you.
Hi, morning. Andrew Ross. I work in the College of Health Sciences and School of Nursing and Public Health. So thank you, Saloshni, for your presentation and for others. The SWOT certainly sounds like a very exciting initiative. What was concerning, though, was that only 16% of the students actually completed the questionnaire. And I think that's often the problem, that students don't engage with the resources that the university makes available. And so how are you going to get the other 50 to complete so that it becomes part of the process? And then is it envisaged that this would be an ongoing assessment kind of year by year? Because it's all very well to assess students in first year, but in fifth year they might be facing other challenges.
So if you look at the timing of the release of the wellness assessment, we're in the midst of examinations. The wellness assessment was designed to be released at the beginning of what we call the first test series, so not at the point of exams. It's meant to be released in March, and we've been doing this since 2005, releasing in March when the student has entered the university environment, has attended lectures, but has not written any exams. Just done a couple of assessments, assignments. So we want to understand the student's experience and the student's wellness at that point in time. The idea is to be able to get a sense of the wellness of the student, to proactively identify and intervene. So the timing for the pilot is at the point of exams, when all minds are focused on study. So to get that uptake from a class of 80 for me is good, because I know that students in nursing are very busy at this point in time. We also know that when we did this manually, we had 100% uptake. We've been doing it via a Lime survey for a few years, and we had about a 96% uptake. We did it via Google Forms in the last 5 years, and our uptake for entire first years in the College of Health Sciences is between 96 to 98% uptake. SWOT automation is a whole new approach, and for a student to see these constant reminders, etc., it's something new. So I think there's a lot of marketing that we're going to need to do to enhance the availability, the visibility of SWOT. I take your point on uptake, but for me, timing is very, very important. Now, you spoke about continued assessment. The value of that wellness profile, and I said it stays with you from the time you enter to the time you exit university. When you come back to see your counselor in your second year, one just goes back to your profile, your wellness profile, and look at which domains were of concern, and look at what the shifts are in the second year. One doesn't have to continuously assess, but one can look at the shifts. The time at which we do a new wellness assessment is with postgraduates, because we find significant shifts once the student transitions into postgraduate study, the same student that was with us in undergraduates. And we also do it for our clinical medicine students in fourth year. And the primary reason for that is they move away from the lab medicine of 3 years into clinical spaces where their experience is somewhat different, because now they're interacting within a clinical space with patients, and we find that there's a different focus. We deal a lot with presentations of grief and bereavement and death and dying, etc. So we do implement with fourth years for that very reason. It's also a move into a different school and a different focus, so they need to also ensure that the students, once they enter the clinical settings, are able to be managed effectively for clinical practice.
Thank you, Dr. Pillay. Perhaps maybe just to add the issue of the timing, we could have waited for next year to pilot. However, we also wanted to close off phase 1 so that we release the people that are working with us in the development. That's why we had to pilot, so that we know that it can do all the things that we wanted, so that we don't just pay them. Meanwhile, come next year when they are gone, we don't know if it's working. Otherwise, this was just the wrong time of doing it. But we're still happy with the fact that it did everything that we thought it would do for us. Thank you. There's another hand at the back. This side is quiet. Oh, there's then this one. So let's go back, let's go to the back, and then let's come here. And those would be the last ones for now, because we also want to make sure that you don't lose out on tea.
So I just wanted to go back to the issue of food insecurity, because it is such a big issue and challenge. We have to frame it, if you look at, again, going back to where do we recruit the majority of our students, if we're saying quintile 1 to 3, then it raises the ethical question. What is the ethical obligations of the institution? If we talk about social justice, then this becomes really important questions. But I think there's also a very practical component to it. So a proposal that we should be taking and considering as an institution is to look at reintroducing catered residences. I think that's a huge factor at UKZN in terms of the food insecurity issues that students experience. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that is more of a recommendation than a question, and it's something that we should be taking down. That it's more than just an issue of identifying a certain group of students, but all students, not only also in the residences. Even for students who are at home, who come daily, there must be a space. But it's something that we should be taking down. I'm happy that the DVC is here. Maybe she can take that to the EMC, but also even in my capacity, as well as in the capacity of the student support service managers, it's something that we really need to take forward to the right ears of the VC and whosoever is also listening. There was a hand here.
Thanks, Prof, and thanks for all the presentation. And I'm trying to think, as an African man, located in a province where we still have people who believe in their cultural practices. And sometimes these cultural practices do create certain mental problems which need to be addressed. And you can see for the past almost 1 hour and a half, we have not mentioned about these other issues that are spiritual, which for some of us during our consultations with students, they raise these issues. It was just a concern. And I wish SWAT, I'm not sure if it does also take into consideration we are in KwaZulu. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Pillay will respond, but I want to just excite you to start looking at the program. There's someone who is presenting something that will just answer your question. Dr. Pillay, do you want to say
Thank
anything?
you. And I do believe my colleagues will join on the latest developments on holistic interventions. So the SWOT program does also consider culture-bound syndromes, traditional practices. We have a question that asks that, and we do referrals from student support to students, traditional practitioners as well. So the tool does raise that as well. That's the one. The second is, and I'm going to ask my colleague at Humanities to give you input on the progress to date on where we are at looking at the different interventions and approaches. What I can say though is our students that come to us at Student Support Services don't necessarily come to see the student counselor or don't necessarily need the services of the student counselor only. There are multiple role players that impact the student's life and support the student, and the traditional healer is one of them. So like I said, we do referrals to, and we have had a traditional healer on campus, but it's not there currently. The learning from the lockdown was, and the review of services to moving online is also to consider what would be the best suite of services for a diverse student population to ensure that it is meaningful, relevant, responsive, and innovative. It's got to speak to the student and the student's need. And I think post-COVID has offered us the opportunity to reinterrogate what is available and what needs to be available to students. Thanks. But I'm going to defer to my colleague, Dr. Stevens, to give us an update on the traditional practice.
Thank you. Very quick, it's such an important question, one that we are very cognizant of. And when I say we, not just Student Support Services, but all the divisions at the institution. As Dr. Pillay said, we have had a traditional healer on Howard College campus only. We are looking to extend this obviously beyond, because based on student needs. So under the leadership of Prof. Mkhize, the DVC of Humanities, in collaboration with many stakeholders at the university, nationally, internationally, including traditional healers, we are in the final stages of organizing a mini symposium that is going to look at how we can extend support services at UKZN to not just look at very westernized forms as what we have currently, but to go beyond so that we can also be more responsive in terms of the diversity in our student population. Thank you, Chair. So please do look out for that, colleagues. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, she's generous, but that's fine, because she has already given you the mic. Please go through, but that's the last question, so that we move on.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maud Donda from the School of Clinical Medicine.
Louder, please.
Oh, my name is Maud Donda. I am from the School of Clinical Medicine, Professional and Clinical Practice. What I have observed whilst I was listening to Prof. Lewis' presentation, she speaks about the ethics of care in learning. And what I've noticed over the years is that our students are very clear what they mean when they talk about care. They don't want to be given marks. They want somebody to ask them if they've done their homework. They want somebody to actually check if they're okay. You know, they simplify it so much. So what I'm seeing is that the SWOT wouldn't it be important for it to emphasize the fact that it is a tool that actually gives students the type of care that you need. You want to know if they've eaten. You want to know if they need to see a counselor. You want to know if they want assistance with their learning. So the ethics of care should underpin the SWOT so that students can understand that this is a platform where you are enabled to have a constructive dialogue with the university community that cares about you.
Thank you.
So I think underpinning SWOT is student wellness. And we of the firm belief you've got to be well before you focus on your academics. And student wellness is about caring for the well-being of students to timeously identify and support students.
Thank you. We are going to go for tea, but when we come back from tea, we're going to to the parallel sessions. You can look at how are we going to do this? But you can look at the program, or you can just get into your instinct. It will direct you to where you should be. We are having, in this room, I think, a theme that is innovative tools and strategies for enhanced student development. If that is where you are interested, that's where you would be. And then the other session, which is room 2, hall 2C, I think it's that side. It is a theme looking at support interventions for postgraduate student success. We've already indicated, there it's on the screen. So just a quick look on the screen, and you can decide where you want to go. Maybe just to indicate that for hall 2C, there is that theme, support interventions for postgrad students, and then approaches in identifying and supporting students at risk. In this room, innovative tools and strategies for enhanced student development. So we choose when we come back from tea. On that note, blood sugar levels that are going down now need to be, that's the nurse speaking. Thank you so much, colleagues. You've been wonderful. Let's go for tea. And Prof, there was no question for you. It was so good. No question.